Hey everyone, welcome back. I am actually making another paint because I really enjoy doing this and it's kind of fun to experiment. Um, this here, I'm zooming in here. This is a lime green Mojito and it's got the chromium oxide green in it. This is an interesting white purple mica powder. It's got like tin oxide and some titanium dioxide and some strange mineral that I don't know how to pronounce. And then this is Ultramarine Blue, which in watercolor has a tendency to granulate, which is kind of what I was looking for. Here is my Brightener Powder. It's titanium dioxide, but I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to use it at that point. I ultimately did not decide to use it, but yeah, so here's my typical stuff here. There's glycerin. I've got my honey here. So the glycerin is the humectant, the plasticizer. The honey is the humectant. And then my pre-mixed solution, which I hadn't opened yet, but I keep the plastic wrap on there to keep it from evaporating. But here's my pre-mixed solution of the gum arabic in water and preservative. Okay, so I got my piece of glass here that I'm going to do my mixing on. And I want the majority of this color to be this ultramarine blue. This is kind of an old pigment. I've actually had it for a very long time. I don't use it very often in soap. Even though it's great in soap, I just don't use it very often. But it's held up over the years. It's a little clumpy, but it's fine. This is newer, but it's also a mica based pigment, so it's got the mica, well, not mica based, but you know, it's a mixture of mica and pigment, and this is the chromium oxide green. My goal is to get kind of a blue green color, maybe more on the blue side, and I want it to granulate because I don't know, there's a pigment at Daniel Smith that's really cool. It's called Moon Glow. I'll link it in the description. And as it granulates, it kind of separates into some different colors, which is good for some things. But here's this interference kind of purple color. It's really sparkly. I don't know if you can tell from the photo or the video, but yeah, it's incredibly sparkly, and the stuff is very airborne. So I'm trying to be very careful with this, and I wipe off my spatula every time. So at this point, I would decide whether or not to use this whitener, but nope, I'm not going to use it. I kind of want the deep blue color to kind of come out and not lighten it at all. I also don't want to over lighten the green that's in there because it's already pretty light to begin with. Since it's a mica mixture, the chromium oxide green is not as pronounced as it could be. And here I'm adding my gum arabic. I actually added more this time because last time I added it seemed like I didn't add enough, and it took a long time for it to dry. Yeah, so I'm adding that there. And then my glycerin, just 4 to 6 drops, and then just a little squirt of honey, not a whole lot, because if you add too much honey, then your paint is constantly going to be picking up water from the atmosphere, and it just won't really dry right. So here I am just mixing it a little bit. It's really pretty in its initial thing. So I'm using my little bent neck spatula to kind of smoosh down the pigment into the carriers and mix it all together. I'm just going to speed this up a little bit because it does take some time to mix these things together. Ultimately, probably about half an hour. It might be a little different if I had that glass milling device. So now at this point I can tell my solution's a little bit watery, so I'm going to add just a touch of cornstarch. It probably wouldn't be this way if my gum arabic solution was a little bit less runny, but you know, again, that's okay. The water eventually evaporate off. This kind of gives it a little bit more structure. And I can actually get a little bit more information about what cornstarch actually, you know, some of the other properties of cornstarch in paint. are for, but you don't want to use a ton. It's just because I think in my earlier video I mentioned that the properties of cornstarch are very bizarre, so you don't want to like, and I've done this before, I've added a little bit too much cornstarch to a paint and it kind of behaved like a liquid when I was mixing it, but then as soon as it was sitting there, it was like pretty solid. But if you put your finger on it, then it kind of turned back to a liquid really quick because of that extra friction, or I don't really know how to explain it. Cornstarch is a strange beast. But yeah, I didn't add a ton, but I just kind of used it to maybe mop up a little bit more of that moisture. I'm just going to speed this up again real quick because as I'm adding in the cornstarch, I'm just trying to make sure it's thoroughly blended, and I'm really giving it the go around on that glass. And after I'm done thoroughly mixing this up, I like to do a little test swatch to make sure that everything is kind of doing what it's supposed to, spreading easily dry and wet and wet. So here the first thing I'm going to try is the wet paint on dry, just to make sure that I've got a good color representation, that I've got enough pigment in there. This one is a little bit light, but I am being kind of delicate on my glass, dipping it in there because I don't want to like pull up too much paint on my brush because I want to kind of box it up. Here I'm just laying down a swatch of a swatch of wetness to see, like, you know, how it behaves wet and wet. And, you know, kind of what I expect without any kind of dispersant in there. I might try to mix some paints with a dispersant just to see how well, but it looks like it is applying really smoothly, and that's kind of what we're looking for here. Because even if you're just doing like a basic paint, you want to be able to kind of make, you know, a nice solid either gradient or just a wash of color. So I actually have ran out of those pans that I had last time. So I actually washed out one that was almost empty just so I could use it again. And yeah, this one, since it is still kind of watery, rather than spatula it up and scoop it up on my spatula to dump in the thing, I have to kind of like guide it down to that corner of the glass so that I can just kind of pour it in there. And this actually, I feel, works better than just picking it up on the spatula, because when you pick it up on the spatula, a lot of times, you know, it drips and gets all over the place, but this way it goes straight in there. And after pouring it in there, you can see it's I don't know if you can see with the lighting in there. Yeah, there it is. It's really pretty. It's got that shimmery kind of look to it and left like its own little like trace there. All right, and here's the final swatch. You can see the top one is wet on dry, and then the one on the bottom is wet on wet. You can see definitely on the wet on wet how it granulates, and there's like the shimmering sparkles in there from that interference purplish color. I can't see the granulating green very much, but it kind of lends the blue a nice bluish green tint, and it's a very pretty color. And as I was cleaning up, I was thinking, I shall name thee Siren's Tear. So the name of this paint is Siren's Tear. And I'll do another video maybe where I paint a monochromatic scene with just this paint so you can see how it looks when it's all said and done. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoy doing these sort of things and mixing things and creating and just experimenting. So if you're interested in subscribing to this channel, you can just click on my portrait there in the center. You can receive notifications when I post by clicking on the alarm bell notification. If you are interested, you can check out my other two channels. My Right Brain Liz is not really up and running as of this moment, but I do have a couple videos on my ASMR channel. And yeah, just check it out, and I will see you next time. Bye!